Welcome to today's guest. And as you know, we always have a special person to talk about our set topic. And this week we are talking about examination preparations. Today we have the person of Mr. David Fakonda. He's the president of Teens Hub Africa. He's a counselor and a life coach, and he loves singing, writing, and playing football. You're very welcome, sir.
Thank you, Vivian.
So today we will be talking about examination preparations. It's obvious that this is a time where students get very bothered. Most of them get out of shape and state. But before we go into most things, what would you describe as examination?
Okay, I would say without examination, there won't be promotion. And without examination, there won't be empirical system to actually validate diligence, to reward diligence, or to reward laziness. So I believe that exams are part of life. If you commit yourself to certain life principles, there's got to be certain system within life to validate if you have passed through that system. And if you did, well, we will see at the end of the road. So I don't want to give the conventional, examination is, that's those examinations. So you get to sit for exams. Financially, if you are not prudent with your money, it's an exam you're writing. You will get a result. You will be broke. All right. If you are not a good person, if you don't have good character, you cheat on people, you treat people badly, that act is an exam you're writing. You see, you won't have good friends, or you have people who are just like you. So life is all about exams.
Okay, let me ask you this. Coming to the academic setting, why examinations? Because basically we go for our classes, we get to do our attendance, we get to do our assignments, there are extra practicals. So basically, why examination?
Good. It's because from the beginning of an academic session or say semester, there is a general system put in place to validate who is serious academically or who is not. But then there is no way to really justify, because from my experience there are students in class who get to answer most of the questions, but they don't read. They are just smart, they are not diligent. You see that now. They have a way of, cutting corners and going about things. And so they may look mentally smart, but there is no standardized way, that's the word, standardized way to put everybody on the same scale and judge them. And you see, not just judge them to see if they are qualified to be promoted to the next level. It has to be done on the same scale at the same time. So that's the essence of examination in any academic institution or any society. You put them on the same scale. So you want to see if this one says, oh, I'm really smart, I've been diligent. Don't tell us you've been. Your works will speak for you. So exam is that process that allows people's work to speak for them without their influence.
So if exams are that criteria that allows people's work and diligence, the results afterwards, why should it be the criteria in the academic setting? I mean, there are a lot of things we go through. There are lots that students go through and they term as stress.
That's right.
So why should examinations just come as the only criteria for promotion in an academic setting?
God bless you for that question. I've had to ruminate on these, times with a number in the past. It feels really not fully just because when we graduate eventually, I remember, I think I have 2 certificates from FUTA now for first and second degree. You are being awarded a certificate on the basis of academic performance and character. So basically, exam only helps you to validate, or helps the educational system, the university now, to validate your competence academically, not character-wise. However, we understand that you cannot emerge as a success academically through that exam process without having paid your dues. All right, you must have obeyed certain principles, certain standards in the department and the school level. All right, Things like attending lectures. If you are rude to your lecturers, most likely they will send you out of their class, or they wouldn't allow you to write the exam. So I think it still looks to me as the fairest means, although we know that outside there, your degree, I mean, talking about a certificate now, is not really a full way to validate your competence, all right? Because academic prowess is not necessarily the same thing as creativity. Outside there, what is being tested is your resilience and your creativity, and of course, your character. But within the four walls of the university, basically, what you have tested is, let's say, a little bit of your character, all right, and how well you're able to answer the questions.
Okay, let me ask you this: what are the best study strategies that could be used for an examination preparation?
Thank you. Let me start by saying that there is no one almighty formula to these things. However, success will remain mystical until we reduce success to a science. So I want to say that there is an exact science to success. And this also applies when you talk about exams, all right? So there is an exact formula that I want to prescribe. I said exact formula because we have different persons. For instance, some people are nocturnal readers, some are more active during the night, some are more active during the day. Some people read where people are, some people can read and assimilate where people are. So you see, we have different people. Some people can read for you. Here students say they read for 9 hours. Some people never would want to try that. So I said that to say that this formula I'm about to give is something you can use regardless of where you belong. All right. Excuse me, please. Now, having said that, the first thing is to understand that preparation for exam, all right, start not with preparation, but it starts first with vision. If you do not have the vision of a first class, and when I'm talking about a first class, I'm not talking about having the highest mark in an exam. I'm talking about being the best at what you're being taught. Because several things can happen. You can fall sick very close to an exam, and that can affect your grade. But in life, it won't affect your place. You see that now? There is a difference between your grade and your place. So having said that, you need to understand that you need to carve out a vision for yourself. For instance, I tell them in Teens of Africa, for you guys, your A doesn't start from 70. A for them, all right, starts from 95 to 100. B starts from 90 to 95. C starts from so eventually what everybody calls F is 70 for them. Now you can't set most of them on first class. Some of them are 4-pointers. Now, and I was able to generate this reality because I saw that if I had caught a bigger vision for myself earlier in my academic journey, when I was in 100 level, 2009 thereabout, I didn't want to finish with the first class because I felt eventually I wouldn't need it. I just told myself I want to finish with a strong 2-1. Eventually, I didn't finish with a 4-point. I finished with 3.7 something. It was really painful, and I learned in a hard way because I really wish I did. Now, why I'm saying this is because your preparation cannot be beyond your vision. Vision is the bedrock of everything, is the foundation. So I haven't talked about vision. The next thing is preparation. Preparation talks about the quality of time, all right, quality of attention. Most students go to night class and they say that they have read for 7 hours, but actually they watch film for movies for 3 hours, gisted the time away for 2 hours. They eventually ended up reading for 1 hour. All right, they didn't read, they wasted time. So not just the length of time, but the quality of time. And how do you validate the quality of time? You want to check, I hope I'm not too fast. All right, you want to check the depth of your assimilation. Reading is not about the volume, and that takes me to this formula I teach people. There are 2 kinds of reading. There is quantitative reading and there's qualitative reading. All right, qualitative reading, you sit down and you say, I want to finish this course in the next say 3 hours. You see that now? And so you read all through. You have an idea of what the whole course is all about, but you're not going to excel that way. All right, but that's to help you get an idea of what the whole course is talking about. But when you talk about qualitative reading, not quantitative reading, now you want to take your time. So that makes that's why most students can stay on a topic for like 3 to 4 hours, but when they are done, they are done reading, because when they short their note, the note is here. All right, that's why most people feel Futarians cram. It's not really cramming. If you commit a long time to reading, and I will quickly talk about that. I wouldn't know if the questions will get there. every note has two parts. That is what I call the skeletal system and the flesh of your note. The skeletal system is what lecturers design marking schemes around. So a student who is intelligent, is a man of mighty words, can, collect 20 extra sheets, nobody cares. If you are dancing or beating around the bush, you will still fail. So when students come out and say, like they were saying in Yoruba, mo bashe eje, mo foshe e, and eventually they are having terrible grades. They feel there is no, which anyway doing you. You didn't understand how it works. So while you read, you need to learn to isolate the skeleton of that note, of that course or subject. Now these are details like dates, names, nomenclatures, definitions, terminologies, diagrams, all right, specific things that while the lecturer was talking, that's why I said preparation start before the exam. Sometimes when lecturers are teaching, they place certain emphasis. They can even crack joke about it. They can say things like, for instance, if you are asked, intelligent student will write it down. It took me a while, like 3 years, before I knew this in the university. I knew that, I discovered that my note was different from the note of the guys leading in my class. They have this red pen they used to jot, it's like added note. And I discovered that eventually that's why they are leading. Because most of them have passed the exam before everyone sits, because they know what exactly is the heartbeat of the lecturer.
Okay, let me ask you this. We've talked about the whole preparation, and I see that you talked about the notes. Then in your conversation, you said the time management. Most people go for a night class and they come back, and it feels like they've read for so much of a long time, meanwhile they've wasted time. So basically, you've talked about time management.
That's right.
You talk about constituting the skeleton and the fleshy part of your notes, having those on detailed work that the lecturer might likely say into your note. What other factors would constitute for success in an exam?
All right. I would say preparation will boost your confidence. Now, if you're to sit for an exam, even if you're being tapped 12 a.m. in the middle of the night, and the question to be asked is, what is your name? Most likely, you will be confident. Is that correct? If you are to be asked, tell us the English alphabet, right? The English alphabet, all right, most likely, you won't frigid because you have the response, you have the ready answer. So, good preparation will give you confidence. I would say this, that there are two kinds of fear you face during an exam. There is the, I'll call it the legitimate fear. Now, it is the fear of, what are they going to ask? The second type of fear is the illegitimate fear, all right, is the fear of the unknown. After you have read, you don't really know what the lecturer is going to ask after all. So the way to address the first fear is proper preparation. Now, I want to believe the lecturers, at least I've been part of them for, not really part of them fully. I worked for like 2 sessions as a teaching assistant. I marked scripts, so I could tell the psychology behind preparing exam questions and things like that. Not sane lecturer, I mean, their parents, they're great people who have most of them should be doing all the things, but they have passion for learning or for teaching, they want to impact. So I don't want to believe that there is no lecturer who is out there to fail students intentionally. We have some of them like that, but maybe just 5%, what you call the bad eggs, all right? So I believe that every lecturer will want to examine you within the context of what you have been taught. The difference or the issue that creates fear right now is that most times students don't pay attention. They feel, oh, that's the bulk, it's not going to come out, that diagram is too wide. They do selective reading. If you do selective reading, then when you get to the exam, you will do selective answering. But if you do comprehensive reading, I've sat for exams, I looked at the whole question, I had to choose which one do I do, which one will take less time. You play around exams. These are days that you get the question paper and you first laugh. The lecturer asks you, oh, what is where you like this question, I don't finish up. And lo and behold, the exam comes out and you blew it because you have defeated the first initial fear, the fear of what is going to come out, all right? The fear of the legitimate fear, you have conquered that. So I think aside that, if you're able to prepare well, confidence will raise your attitude, your confidence will help you to excel.
Okay, in your statement, you've taught us about the legitimate... You've taught us about the legitimate fear. You've taught about the illegitimate fear. That's the fear of the unknown due to lack of preparations. So how do we handle the tension? Because anytime it's close to exam period, most students are very tense. They're like,
That's true.
oh, are we going to pass? What's it going to set? And things like that. How do you handle the tension and the fear that comes with examination?
All right, great. So I'm going to share a personal example. I failed all through my secondary school. I said I failed because I never really had A in mathematics. I'm not really that good with calculation. So when I got to FUTA, too bad, I had a very poor for the mathematics foundation. So you know what that means for me. It's doomsday. All right. Especially remembering you have to do courses like MT 101 and 102. 102 was the demon, you know, the demon that I had to face. I was the David in this case, but the Goliath almost finished me. Now, it went from worst to bad. I mean, from bad to worse. 200 level, we did another maths. I finished from biology department. M-test 224. I had 0 over 40 in the test. It was a 4-unit course, so I'm finished. 4-unit course. Now, I did all I thought I could. I prepared, but out right in time. I was always sitting in front of the class. I did all I could. I want this to really be practical. That's why I'm sharing a personal example. Eventually, I remember the day of the exam, when they started sharing the questions, everybody started whistling from the back. So it's doomsday for everybody. I wasn't going to cheat because I was a believer. How I add 40 here till today, it would take only heaven to explain. Because I remember from that exam, I cried actually. I was one of the first few people to submit. Everybody thought it was because I was smart. It was because I don't want to be tempted to cheat. So what changed just few years after? I went for service, when I was in 300 level, so I caught the strategy. And the Lord told me, said, apologies to those who are not believers, all right? If you have all the principles, I would like you to apply it. But this was what worked for me. It has worked for many people also. Romans 8:32, God told me, he says, son, you've been failing. I don't like it. This is not the best. I mean, lecturers knows I'm intelligent and smart. But the smartness does not translate to what they see on the board. So how do we hack this? This was what God told me. He said, you believe that if I didn't withhold Jesus, my only son, from dying for you, he said, do you believe that I will also freely give you all things? I said, yes, I believe. And I was about to jump in. I said, not yet. Then he brought about this scripture, James chapter 2 verse 17. He said, then show me that faith by your work. So I started reading. But it wasn't just about reading. For the first time, it dawned on me that what I was getting is not the best. Guess what? The next semester came, I had, I set alarms and triggers. I kept reminding myself of who I am, that I'm not a failure. The first test we did, the only question, the most brilliant students in the class failed, I scored. The lecturer for the first time said, all of you, take FAP on that script and check. For the first, the brilliant students now, they were dragging their feet to come. So for the first time I had a taste, ooh, so this is what it feels like to succeed. And I kept building, then I kept making them my friends. You see that now? We would read together, I would collect their note. That was when I knew. Now, I'm not event that changed my academics. I'm talking about orientation in terms of how you prepare. I just asked, I will mention her name, pardon, Cassandra. It was in FUTA Library, the old one. So I said, Cassandra, can I get your note to copy? He said, of course, yes. So he said, what really do you want to write? Biology department. He said, bring your note. She flipped my note and wrote what was written in my note offhand. I knew I must be joking to think I will have the same grade with someone like this. So it was then I knew there was a different commitment these guys had to reading that I don't have an idea about. So, I increased my diligence to reading and things like that. And I moved from 2.7 something. I kept rising. I started having 4 points. I had 5 points at some point. Exam time before used to be the time I'm most scared, but now when they say the exam, I get best of food stuff. I fry dodo. I mean, I'm prepared because I know exam time is not doomsday. And when I came back from masters, that same test 2 to 4 that I almost failed, we did it again. Of course, masters level. Hey, you see that now. So I'm trying to say that you can move from weakness to strength. It starts from your mind. So I can't overemphasize this enough. Attitude is everything. If you think yes, I know there are some persons who may be listening right now. You have always tried, but you failed. But I'm encouraging you, start again. Use these principles. It has worked for so many people. I remember some students in biology department. One of them almost embarrassed me the other day. The moment the result came out, I taught her how to use this principle. She just came running and she hugged me. She didn't care if anybody was looking. Why? Because it always works. It always works. So confidence, preparation, there is no miracle magic to it.
Okay, you've talked about some strategies. Why do students still fail? Because most people do know how to manage their time.
Yeah.
Some people are very, very intelligent, very smart. And I'm not talking about the normal intelligence, like the smart. They read, they understand what you're doing, they have the right attitudes to it, and they still fail. What would you say is the cause of this situation?
Thank you. All right, I want to be a little bit detailed right now. The first thing is, it can sound so funny. The weather can be the difference between your success and your failure in an exam. When I was on 100 level or 200, I observed that any morning paper, I don't do too well because of cold. That sounds so funny. It took me about 2 years before I observed. When I changed what I wear to the exam hall, it was as if once I'm cold, my brain just, get frozen. The rate at which I'm able to pull what I've read, it's a bit infringed. It sounds funny. It can be as simple as that. Number two is question. He's a hero to me, a father. Professor Odule of blessed memory. We were so close, during this time in biology department. One of those moments we were working for him, he put me into his bedroom. A rare privilege I had with him. He's still a legend even in life and in death. He told me, he said he observed that I'm intelligent, but I'm not going to have good grades the way I'm answering questions. He said, I don't pay attention to details. You see that now? I'm trying to be, detailed about it. Most intelligent students just flip and say, I know it, and they start writing. You don't pass just by writing. That's the danger in cramming without understanding. You don't pass because you wrote what is in note. You need to learn how to write to instruction and write to application. You see that now? So, listening or reading instruction, other things may be, there are places where you may be needed to put handouts, not handout, I meant diagrams, tables, all right? You may feel, sometimes student feels they have written enough. No, if you have extra time, go over here. Things that can be as simple as, after you're done, most students wants to be seen as the most important, the most brilliant. So in, 3 hours paper, 1 hour, 30 minutes, they feel their truth, so they want to get up and go out. Eventually, they will get up and discover that they have made a very terrible mistake. You see that now? So, taking your time to understand that it's not about who finished first, but who will have the best result on the board. So, when you're done answering all the questions, sit down and read through. Another thing is actually planning how you answer the question. One of the things I encourage students to do is never start answering exam questions the moment you are handed over to the moment the question sheet is handed over to you. Sit down, read through all your questions. When you're done, the next thing you should do is to ask yourself, which of these questions can you answer? It happens sometimes in calculation in related questions. There are questions that is the same mark, but if you do this, it's going to take more time. And taking more time means you have to rush over the other questions. You see that now? And most of the time, let's say, each of the questions carry the same grade. So you end up having 15, the total mark in the question, but because you are not in a hurry, you miss the other mark, so you need to plan your time. If it is 2 hours, what I advise you to do is, how many questions are you answering? Divide it, but don't say, I have 2 hours, so I have 4 questions, so that's 4 questions in 2 hours. No, keep 30 minutes in case you may spend more time on some of those questions than the others. You see that now? So you can have enough time to review, and when you're done reviewing, be disciplined enough not to allow, what people are saying. There are students who have written the right thing, then someone who they think is intelligent says, no, that's not the answer. Then they ended up cancelling it only to get out and discover that, oh, they missed it eventually. So then, of course, there is a spiritual side. I cannot take that out. All right, there is the place of people actually being manipulated, where they, we have issues with missing scripts, all right, things like that. So I believe one of the ways to undo that is to commit your heart to the Lord and understand that God is writing your exam with you. Don't leave him outside there in the exam hall. Sometimes too, students forget. These are some of the things that causes this, you see. They forget what they have read. Now, and they do it because most people don't read in time. So they do jam-packed reading. Then they start missing things, or only to get, especially tables. And it happens most times when you crash cram. But if you give enough time to prepare, your brain will have enough time to load up those information so that you won't mix things up. I hope I've been able to cover some of these things.
Okay. Quickly give us some tips on how to answer to beat the marking scheme. You already said most times we don't pay attention to details. You might just do the right thing or the wrong thing out of overconfidence.
Yes.
So give us a few tips on how we could answer rightly and beat the marking scheme.
The first thing starts from the class. Pay attention to the emphasis of the lecturer. That's number one. Number two, now that you're in the exam hall, pay close attention to instructions. Number 3, before you start answering questions, endeavor to read the question and isolate the keywords. Things like mention 4 characteristics, 4 characteristics, not similarities, not differences, not those keywords. So before you start answering, in fact, sometimes what I do is when I get a question before I start answering, I study the question and ask myself, if I was the examiner, how am I going to answer this question? What is the examiner really trying to ask? So when I get that, I know how to. You can have the right answer. Sometimes the difference between having A and having B in an exam is as simple as you have the right answers, but which leg do you put first? You see that now? And one of those strategies is to, once you don't have so much, too many ideas on, don't start writing with it first, because you see, there is a psychology in marking, all right? If you start marking and the first few paragraphs, the person is just babbling. I mean, you have already concluded sometimes because of the volume you have to mark. You have concluded on the person. So put your best feet first. I will always encourage students, the first question is not necessarily the first you should answer. There is a psychology to marking. The question you're sure, this one, I know it quite well. Start first with that. Now, by the time the lecturer marks you up, the first question out of 15, you had maybe 14. The second one out of 15, maybe you had 13. He already concludes he's an intelligent student. So even sometimes when you make mistakes, it's just an oversight. But imagine you went ahead and you place your worst feet forward. Second, worst feet forward. By the time he gets to the real questions, out of 4 questions, he has already concluded on you. These things happens. They happens for real. So I think that will help. And lastly, when you're done, like I said, read over again. Check then when you have extra time. I want to be so practical now. Now, one of the things you can do, I can still remember the way FUTA exam answer sheet looks like. When you're answering question 1, if you think you still have some things to write, give some space. Jump to the next answer, so that you won't end up spending out of 2 hours, spending 1 hour, 30 minutes answering 2 questions. Then you have to jostle 2 or 3 other questions within the short time. You see that now? So answer the bits you can, such that the extra time you have, then you can go back and make those additions.
All right, guys, we have been getting educated by the person of Mr. David Fakmonda. He is the president of Teens Hub Africa, and he's a counselor and life coach. Our guests today have recommended a book titled Excellence Campus Life, written by the person of Bumi
Olofinshawo.